President Yoon wraps up his trip to New York in half a day or so, where he had another eventful day, the third and final day over there. Our editor-in-chief Moon Connyoung joins us live from the Big Apple. Connyoung, do fill us in.
Daniel, good morning from rainy New York. Now, President Yoon Suk-yeol is waking up to his third and final day here in New York. And like you said, yesterday, he had an eventful day full of diplomacy, but also one full of last-minute changes and one that's got some questioning its productivity. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol managed to accomplish the two key summit-level conversations that many had anticipated, and what Seoul's presidential office had days ago announced were all ready to go on the sidelines of the 77th UN General Assembly. His meetings with U.S. President Biden and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. As for the Seoul-Washington summit talks, Mr. Yoon was caught on camera Wednesday chatting with Mr. Biden for 48 seconds during a photo opportunity at the Global Fund, where the U.S. leader had just pledged $6 billion and the South Korean leader $100 million over the next 3 years.
President Yoon asked for close cooperation between the two countries so as to help address South Korea's concerns that new U.S. rules on electric vehicle subsidies will hurt the country's automakers. President Biden said he was well aware of the concerns and proposed that the two countries continue serious negotiations.
The White House released a statement saying the two leaders discussed a broad range of issues, including the threat posed by North Korea, supply chain resilience, economic and energy security, and climate change, but did not mention electric vehicle credits. Earlier in the day, the leaders of South Korea and Japan agreed to accelerate efforts to mend ties frayed over Japan's past colonial rule of the Korean Peninsula, as the two countries held their first summit talks in nearly 3 years on the margins of the UN General Assembly.
Two leaders agreed on the need to resolve pending issues to mend bilateral ties, for which they ordered diplomatic authorities to continue to communicate. They also agreed to communicate at the summit level.
During their half-an-hour informal meeting, President Yoon Suk-yeol and Prime Minister Fumio Kishida also expressed concerns about North Korea's recent legislation authorizing the preemptive use of nuclear weapons in certain conditions. Japan also released a statement to that effect. Despite their commitment to keep the communication line open at their level, it's not immediately known how meaningful their first face-to-face conversation was to address major sticking points in bilateral ties, namely Japan's use of wartime forced labor that suffered their biggest setback in recent years. Now, for the remainder of his stay in New York, that's until mid-afternoon today, President Yoon shifted gears to sales diplomacy, taking part in an investor relations event and speaking to opinion leaders. Now, later this afternoon, President Yoon takes off for Canada, the final leg on his three-nation tour, where he's also set to hold a bilateral summit with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Daniel.